This is Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you are welcome. You know the drill. Please subscribe, rate, comment, share, reach out, tell your friends, send smoke signals, whatever. We love your feedback and we want to hear from you. This week, our sponsor is Ritual. Ritual is the obsessively researched vitamin for women. Better health doesn't happen overnight, and right now, Ritual is offering my listeners 10% off during your first 3 months. Fill in the gaps in your diet with Essential for Women, a small step that helps support a healthy foundation for your body. Visit ritual.com/walkin to start your ritual today. That's 10% off during your first 3 months at ritual.com/walkin. Our guest this week is Kassy Dillon. Kassy is a political commentator and founder of Lone Conservative, a group blog created to give a voice to conservative college students. She's been published in the Wall Street Journal, The Hill, Washington Examiner's Red Alert Politics, and Campus Reform, and has appeared on Fox News discussing topics involving free speech and cultural issues on college campuses. Kassy is a young, up-and-coming badass, and I think you'll enjoy hearing her stories. We're with Kassy Dillon, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
By the Hacienda. I've been wanting to have you on for a while.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally could make it work this time.
Yeah. We always have like random things coming up. Or then the one day we tried, it was like the LA Marathon.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I'm like, okay, never mind. Every street is blocked off for like miles. So tell us what you do.
So I guess there's a lot of different things I do, but I'm the founder of Lone Conservative.
Okay.
It is a small organization where we teach college students how to become writers, and then we kind of push them out to other media outlets.
Okay.
I like to call it the National Review for College Students.
That's really cool.
So it's very focused on empowering these young people and teaching them how to write. So that's the first thing I do. I started that in college in 2016. And then I'm also a staff writer for the Daily Wire currently.
Okay.
And I write for various other outlets. I've written for the Wall Street Journal, The Hill, the Washington Examiner, and some other outlets. But I'm also kind of a commentator on my Twitter and have a lot of fun there.
Yes, that's where we met. Where I met everyone.
That's where I met everyone from my career is
me
on Twitter.
Too. I really want to start a podcast that's just all my friends are from Twitter.
Twitter in real life.
Which basically is this podcast, actually. So when you started Lone Conservative, what did you get your degree in college?
So Middle Eastern Studies and International Relations. So not journalism at all.
Okay. And what inspired you to start Lone Conservative and go into journalism?
So let's go back into the story. So when I first started college, I was the first in my family to go to college like right after high school.
Okay.
My mom got a degree, but she was like 35. We know that's not the same as going in and living on a campus.
Right.
And so Mount Holyoke is a small all-girls school in Western Massachusetts, and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. Like, I knew that it'd be liberal, but I didn't know about this whole college bias thing that Republicans are shamed and hated. And to be honest, even in 2014, colleges weren't as crazy as they are now. I'd say after 2016 is when they got a lot worse.
Yeah.
But there were still some issues. So I went to college, and the first semester, I met this girl named Yvonne. We met on a Facebook group because she posted, "Hey, I'm a Republican. I was wondering if there's any others." And so I responded. I was the only one to respond, and we were known as the Republican girls for the first semester.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And so she got into writing for Campus Reform. And this is during the Ferguson riots and protests. And they had one at my school, and she went and she wrote an article about it. It wasn't an opinion article. She was just writing about how they said if you were white, you had to stand at the back of the protest.
Right.
So she just wrote it up. And then the next day, we went to lunch together in our dining hall. And we're sitting there, and these girls get in the stage, and they start calling out on stage, pointing at her, calling her racist, and yelling things at her. And I'm sitting next to her like, girl, I'm trying to make friends. Like, I do not want to be your friend. Like, this is scary. Why are you getting into politics? Yada, yada.
Yeah.
So she ended up getting bullied. They put things in her door. They're yelling at her and making fun of her appearance. And she ended up leaving Mount Holyoke, but not because of that. She's a very tough girl. But she left because she won a state rep race in New Hampshire.
Oh, okay.
So she worked out well for her. So she left, and then I was still quiet. I started interning for the governor, who was a Republican, air quotes, Republican, Charlie Baker. And then I went and I got in the Carly Fiorina campaign. And then I started getting more involved. Yeah, Carly was my girl.
Okay.
And so after that, I was still kind of quiet. And then I started writing for Campus Reform. the same outlet Yvonne was working for. And they asked me to go to a campus speech with 3 people I haven't heard of before. It was Steven Crowder.
Oh, gosh.
Christina Hoff Sommers.
Oh, boy.
And Milo Yiannopoulos.
Nazis.
And I had no idea who any of them were.
Right.
It was finals. I didn't want to be there, but they were really like, Cassie, you need to go. You need to go.
Right.
And so I walk in, and there's this girl, and she was handing me a flyer talking about how these people are responsible for the death of obese people, and they're hateful, yada, yada. I asked to interview her. She declined. And so I sat down. And then it all started. The YouTube video for this is still up online. It's probably the craziest campus speech I've ever seen. And this is kind of what made those 3 more famous.
Yeah.
Like obviously they already had a platform, but this event made them more famous because the girl behind me who had tried to give me a flyer, she flipped out and I got it on camera.
Oh, wait. Was this a snowflake melting down?
This is Trigglypuff.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
You took that video?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I love you. I love you even more now. That is hilarious. I didn't know that was you that took that.
Well, there's 2 different shots. There's one where a girl has her face in it and she's like kind of rolling her eyes at her.
Yeah,
and there's
no.
a straight on shot.
There's the one of her. Is this the like? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like get your hate speech off. Yeah, that one's my video.
Whoa.
So yeah, I took this video.
You're responsible for like a viral sensation.
I created the face of the campus crazy movement.
Right.
Like she became the poster child. She's still the poster child for it.
Yeah.
And I
As
think
she should be.
Yeah. And the worst part about this was I didn't think that was going to go viral.
Right.
I had 5% battery in my phone. I didn't think it was a big deal because everyone in that room was freaking out.
Where did you post it?
I just gave it to Campus Reform and they posted it.
Ah.
And so I logged back on the internet the next day and they named her Trigglypuff.
Is Campus Reform, what is it aligned with?
So it's just a right-wing website that posts like crazy things that are going on campus.
Okay.
Yeah. So I give it to them. The next day I go online and it is viral. And I wasn't on Twitter until this happened. I got on Twitter.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you were already on Twitter.
No, this started everything for me. I get on Twitter after that. But I checked my email and I got an email from my dean calling me into the office. Oh yeah. They called me into the office. And well, they told me you have to come to this meeting. It's mandatory.
Oh.
It's about your video. A student is alleging that you harassed her and took a video without consent. Now, I just want to point out that this event wasn't at my school. I went to a different school.
Right.
And the protester is from a different school as well. Not my school, not the school she was at.
Right.
So I get called in and I'm freaking out. Okay. So I'm like, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get expelled. I'm going to lose my scholarship. And so the Yvonne girl, this girl has a big theme in my life. She told me to reach out to the constitutional law professor, who's a liberal, and let him know what's going on. And so I told him, and I met with him like 2 minutes before the meeting. And he walks in and he goes, I'll be representing Miss Dillon today.
Wow.
Yeah. And the deans were like, uh-oh. Because he has tenure and he's argued before the Massachusetts Supreme Court. Like this guy knows what he's doing. And so then they threw it out. They didn't do anything with it, but they tried to intimidate me for sure.
Yeah. Into like taking the video down? I mean, I couldn't have taken it down. It was already a GIF. It was everywhere. It lives forever.
Yeah, it was everywhere.
But what did they think they were going to do exactly?
They're trying to scare me so I don't do it again,
right.
Which they shouldn't have because the rest of my time in college I continued. But right after this happened, like 2 days later, I was on my way to Washington, D.C. to start my first internship.
Right.
And they put me right on Fox News to talk about this.
Holy.
And then I went and crossed the hallway because my internship was in the same building as Fox. And I started my career into media. So
wow.
It's been quite a journey since then.
That's crazy. I love these stories, though, because it is so random how it all... I mean, even before we sat down to talk, I was telling you a little bit about just my craziness that's happened. And I'm much older, not much older, but a lot older than you. But it's very similar where it was like, whoops, and now I'm whoops here. And so that is the weird power of the internet, I feel like, is like something can happen and then suddenly or like, what is... I was saying when I went on Glenn Beck's show that I was like... I was a liberal, I was born and raised in the Northeast and have a very liberal family. And I looked at him and I was like, if you had told me that I'd be sitting here, 5.5 years ago, I would have been like, what drugs do you have? And can I have more? I feel like I'm playing this giant game of like, yes and improv, you know? It's
No,
like,
I get
yes,
it.
and now I'll do this.
You can never expect it. Like, I was an ROTC cadet.
Oh, wow.
My goal is to go into the Air Force and become a lawyer.
Wow.
And then this media thing happened, and I realized that I wanted to do media more than the military.
Yeah.
And sometimes I look back and I regret that. Sometimes I wish I would have went and served my country instead, but I chose the media path because I was a college student and I was having fun.
Yeah.
And now here I am. And for a while, I was trying to make myself not be just the girl who caught Trigglypuff. Like, that's what I was on Twitter. And then I finally developed a brand outside of that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I guess it would be easy to be pigeonholed as like the
I'm glad you didn't know. That's actually
I didn't.
progress.
I did not know. I don't Google people though either. I'm just I like them to tell me who they are. So I generally don't do much research. And to your point about serving your country, so a couple weeks ago I had my friend Aaron on, and he joined the Army Reserves 2 years before the cutoff because he was a military brat, and then he didn't want to go down that path but always thought he would, and then he never did, and then felt the same kind of way, and then he like 33 yeah, he joined. So it's never too late.
Maybe it'll come eventually. We'll see.
Yeah.
Like Sean Spicer is in the media, and then he was also in the military. So.
Yeah, you never, like, life is weird. So
I
you
probably
never
want to get security clearance because I go overseas so much. But
so what do you go overseas for?
Well, I went over to Iraq last May, about almost a year now.
Wow.
I went over to Iraq and to Kurdistan because I wrote my thesis about it, and then some of my friends were going, and so I went over with them, and it was the scariest, most crazy, adrenaline feeling 5 days of my life.
Wow.
And then I go to Israel all the time. I'll be going back to Israel in like 2 months.
I might go to visit Ariel.
Oh, you should.
Yeah,
she's working
June.
for Kohelet.
I know. I think that because I've never been, and I'm dying to go.
You need to.
I have to.
Well, if you're there when I'm there, I will give you a tour. I've been so many times.
Yeah, I'm dying to go. So that's definitely going to happen. And of course, everyone's like, no, you can't go there. I'm like, I'm going.
Everyone's like, the rockets are so scary. I'm like, go walk downtown in Chicago. It's scarier than the rockets.
I mean, I've traveled. I was in India alone, and I was in many different places, traveled pretty extensively for 2 years. And I came back, and when I was leaving, my dad's like, be careful. You know, I'm like, I live in LA. What do you think? I just walk around like oblivious? I live in the biggest city in America. I'm not like, tra la 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 la, just nothing's, you know, I have my guard up everywhere.
Israel's way safer than LA. I do not feel safe. Like in LA, I would not walk down my street by myself. And I live in a nice Jewish neighborhood. Yeah. But in Israel, I'd walk down the streets of Jerusalem by myself, no problem.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about those 5 days when you were the most adrenaline. Why were they so intense?
I think it was partially the people who were on my trip and then just being there in general. So first we flew into Turkey, and I had never met any of these people in person.
Who were the people?
So there's Jake Turks. Mm-hmm. He's a White House correspondent for Ami Magazine. Mm-hmm. Do you remember when Trump said, sit down, shut up to some Jewish journalist? Mm-hmm. That's him.
Okay. I do remember this.
Yeah, he's an Orthodox Jew. He has his Phetasy, which is the curly hair out and everything. And so I'm like, oh God, you're going to get us killed. Like, they're going to see that there's a Jew here, and like, you're very blatantly Jewish. You're not even trying to hide it. And then there was another Jewish kid who was very loud, who I didn't like at first because he just wouldn't shut up. But now he's one of my best friends. And then there was another Jewish kid who was Israeli. He had an American passport, flew from Israel to Turkey and then to Iraq, which is not allowed, but he did it with us. And he was carrying around Israeli flags, which is a crime in Iraq. It's not really enforced in Kurdistan, but it's a crime. And he was passing them out. I have videos of it. And then the other people were two documentary filmmakers. One was, we had another Jewish kid, but he was in the American military. And then there was one other kid who was on the trip who organized it that none of us could stand. Like day 2, we're like, this kid is awful. So we fly into the airport, okay? We get into the airport at like, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And it's storming out. And Iraqi airports are not nice. Let me tell you. We flew into Erbil and it was leaking. The airport was like flooded. The bathrooms had a few inches of water. And the loud kid decided it'd be a great idea to go and film it. Let's go into the bathroom and show how crappy the Iraqi airports are, which is offensive to the Kurds. Right. You are making them look bad. And so they like almost arrested him. Oh, God. Oh, we also had another American with us who fought for the Peshmerga. Mm-hmm. So he's a veteran. And then he went and volunteered to fight against ISIS. Mm-hmm. He's really cool. And so after he takes this video or whatever, they're trying to arrest him. And then they don't. And they go through his bags and they take one of his drones. And they said, oh, we'll give you back your drone when you leave Iraq. No, they kept the drone. We never got the drone back.
God.
And so then when we exit the airport, we're met by 2 vehicles full of Peshmerga. They were going to escort us to Sulaymaniyah, which is a different city in Kurdistan. And these guys all have like AKs, and they're just like, they have RPGs in the trunk. Like, they're just like, come on, Americans. And I'm scared. I'm like, this is kind of an overkill to have this many people. And the guy leading the Kurdish security, he had already taken a liking to me by seeing photos of me online.
Oh, boy.
Let me mind you, I'm the only girl on this trip. And his name was Mo, and he right away was just guarding me, you know, just staying by me, like trying to tell me, like, you have to stay close to me. Oh, would you like my jacket? And me, nothing, it was a big deal. I was like, yeah, I'll take your jacket. It's kind of cold. That was a big mistake. He was never like handsy with me or anything like that, but he was definitely like, later on we went to like a bar and he's like, you can't dance. Girls can't dance unless you're dancing with me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, so there's kind of that where like by the time I was leaving Iraq, I was screaming, screw the patriarchy. Yeah. And gun control needs to happen, because these guys, let me tell you, they're shooting AKs up into the air, and what goes up apparently doesn't come down in Iraq. Yeah. Because everywhere I went, they were doing this.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it is funny to, you know, talk whenever I hear, because in India too, it's the women, you know, the guy, nothing was more exemplary to me of the actual patriarchy than I went to this festival and all the women were just standing by the food, not doing anything, nothing, just standing, lining, and the guys were going batshit crazy, coming down in the parade, elephants, and it was like over the top crazy. Like, they had drums and they were dancing. It looked like I had so much fun, and I was looking at the women and I was like, yeah, this is a patriarchy. You know, like,
it's real. And all those feminists in America, like, obviously we have our issues here for sure.
Of course.
But what I went through was just 5 days. I was so annoyed. By the time we went to, it was the last day, I was not covering up my whole body anymore. I was wearing skinny jeans and a V-neck, and I'm like, screw you. I'm sick of wearing this Islamic attire. I'm so done with it.
It's dangerous though.
Yeah, I didn't have to wear a hijab, but I did have to cover like my wrists and my ankles, because not to draw attention to me as a Western woman.
When I was in Egypt, same thing.
Yep, I'll be going to Egypt in the Sinai this summer, so I have to bring all that stuff again. Good thing I have a huge wardrobe for it.
I know, like the scarf and like the long. I have all of it.
Yeah, so let me tell you about the first day. Yeah. We got to the hotel. Mm-hmm. I'm exhausted. We just traveled and we had a huge layover in Turkey. And so I walk into my hotel room, and mind you, I'm the only girl again. So they had to make the guys wait outside the elevators and wait until I'm in my room before the guys were allowed to get into the elevators. Oh, wow. Because they're really strict about, like, if you're not married, you can't be in a room alone with the girl. Right. So I thought that was kind of weird, but like later on I was like, you know, that's actually probably a good thing. Yeah. Because I don't know who like some of these guys are. Yeah. And so I get into my room and I'm laying down. I'm like, okay, so let's relax. Mind you, I'm staying in a hotel that's like $20 a night, and it's like 5-star. And so I'm laying down and I hear a huge explosion and then AK fire. Oh, God. And so I roll off my bed onto the ground. I'm like, oh my God, shit, they know where the Americans are. I'm screwed. Like, they know where we are. And so I'm freaking out. I'm just laying there like trying to listen to what's going on. And I peek my head out the window, and what it was fireworks and celebratory AK fire. Yeah. They were just shooting it up because their elections were about to happen. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm in Iraq. Yeah. And the rest of the time consisted of like touring around, meeting with like a bunch of political officials, the KDP and the PUK. And then on the last day, when I was not dressed the way I was supposed to be, we went to the front lines. They said that there was some like sleeper cell ISIS forces over there, and then also some Shia militias. Mm-hmm. And so we went over there and we were like hiding behind sandbags, and so that was crazy. But that was probably the scariest part, was being behind the front lines. But also when we were driving back, we went through one Arab town that was recently freed, and all these Arabs are walking up to the car, and I can speak some Arabic. And I hear my security guard screaming at them in Arabic, telling him to back up or he's going to shoot them. Oh, Jesus. And so they push my head down because they don't want these people to see that there's a Western woman. Because then they're going to be like, oh, look, they're Americans. Yeah. And so like I'm being pushed down into like the seat of the car, and they're trying to deal with this security threat. And so That was Iraq, but it was really fun, and Kurdistan's a really beautiful place.
Did you ever think like you wanted to be a war correspondent or anything?
I would love to.
I can totally see you doing it.
I like doing this scary stuff. I like going
you
out
seem
there.
to have some balls on you. I mean, even the stuff you were doing at the protests, I always see you doing like, you're like, now I'm at the border and now I'm in San Francisco. And I'm like, this girl has freaking balls of steel, man.
I like the controversy. Yeah. I like being there. I like, it makes you feel alive. You know?
Yeah. I mean, did you come from a chaotic upbringing?
No, not really. I grew up in Western Massachusetts in a town called Chicopee.
Mm-hmm.
It's a city, but it's a small city. It's not a very good city. I think it's like 50% poverty rate. I've been to like 9 different schools because I moved around a lot.
Yeah,
and
me too.
Never like out of Western Mass. So like I lived in Georgia for a little while and Florida for a little while, but mainly stayed there. But no, I never did anything crazy growing up, honestly. Maybe cliff jumping.
Was your household like chaotic? I mean, did you come from like a stable environment, or did you have like, what was your childhood like, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, so I have 2 siblings on my mom's side. I have a little sister on my dad's side, but I didn't grow up with my dad. He lives in Florida. And so I'm the middle child.
Mm-hmm.
So my sister's 5 years older than me, and my brother's 5 years younger. And we all have different dads.
Okay.
So we're all half siblings living with my single mother, who
Oh,
was
okay.
single most of our lives. She brought in different guys all the time, but she was never in a stable relationship for more than a year or 2. And so there was a lot of fighting in my house. You can imagine being a single mom with 3 kids.
Yeah, it's hard.
And the kids fight, and my mom had a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah.
So I ended up moving out. When I was 16, she moved out. And so then I had the apartment to myself in high school, working almost full time at a daycare. And she's like, well, now you get to take care of the bills.
Oh, God.
Because she moved in with a guy because she had a lot of mental issues. And so I ended up having to call the Department of Children and Families on my own mother.
Oh, my gosh.
And so then they gave custody to my older sister. So my sister would get child support from my dad and all of that. And so I ended up moving with my sister, but also paying a good amount of the rent.
That's
while
crazy.
in high school. And then when I went off to college, I was like, okay, now I get to relax and like focus on school rather than surviving, you know?
Right. No, I know. I mean, I only ask that because I feel like you're a bit of a kindred spirit, and my upbringing was very chaotic. The home life was unstable, and I feel like that instability gives me like that hunger for chaos a little bit. I seek it out.
That could be it.
And it doesn't scare me because it's almost what I've been programmed to accept as normal.
It makes you appreciate what you have too. Like, I feel like when I go to Iraq, and you know, in America, I have a sob story of my growing up. You know, we were really poor, we were on welfare. And then I go to Iraq and I see the 5-year-old trying to sell me a little pack of gum. And I'm like, well, this kid had it worse than me. Yeah. I was a millionaire compared to this kid.
Yeah, totally.
So it does make you appreciate it.
I'll never forget this kid in Egypt, little Mo. And he was like the little shoe shiner boy who was working with all of the horse and buggy people who waited to take you around when we were in Luxor. And we loved the guy I was with. We just loved this little kid. And he's like, I want to adopt him. You know, he spoke like 7 languages because they're just trying to used to tourists and trying to get them. And I was like, yeah, we'd adopt him, and he would be ruined in like 2 years. You know, he'd be playing video games,
only
speaking English, just on his iPad all day. And we were laughing about it. But I'll never forget him running after that horse and buggy, like as long as I live. Just this little 5-year-old, and he didn't have a mom, and his dad was, you know, at home. It was just like this little 7-year-old on the streets. Yeah. Trying to survive.
American kids do not know how good they have it.
No.
When I have kids, I am banning video games. You can have them on the weekends, and that's it.
Yeah.
I know how addictive those things get.
It's getting later for me, but it's not too late. If I ever do have a child, I'm going to be like, putting a backpack on, around the world, kid.
Like, you'd be a fun mom.
I'm the oldest of 5, so
wow.
And because of the upbringing, I feel like there was a lot of momming.
You already feel like a mom.
And it's one of those things where I always thought I would have kids, and I don't just want kids for kids' sake. I want a family, and that just never happened. And so I just never met a man that I wanted a family with. And because I think I come from kind of a broken home, I'm like, I don't want to.
It's better no man than the wrong man.
Well, and I think sometimes being a good mom is knowing when you shouldn't be a mom. Like there's this weird thing of, I know I could have done it. I'd probably be an amazing single mom. And I love that movie Chocolat where she she's a gypsy and takes her daughter like all over the world. I could see that being my fate a little bit. Go learn some French.
I read some blog the other day of some woman who took her 2 kids to India and like homeschooled them while traveling around India.
Oh yeah. I mean,
really cool.
People don't really think outside of the box, I feel like, enough. When I was in New Zealand, there was this couple and they left America. They were like, F this. We don't want to raise American kids. And they went to New Zealand. The kids were on FaceTime learning Mandarin.
Oh my gosh.
They homeschooled them. The guy was, he was in finance. So the mother, and the mother was in academia. So she homeschooled the kids. But these kids were just amazing and like
Brilliant.
Light years ahead of any of the kids that are probably their age in America.
You're going to learn more from traveling than you are sitting in a classroom with 29 other kids that have to have the attention from the teacher as well. You're going to learn more from traveling.
I felt like school was jail. I mean, and I was good at it. But even in high school, and it's part of the reason that I dropped out of college, because I just felt like I was in jail. I'm like, I'm not going to go pay for jail. I just got out of jail.
For me in middle school, I was a really bad kid because I was too smart for my age.
Yep.
And so every time the teachers would give us like stupid busy work, I would finish it right away and just start messing around.
Yep.
I used to get in trouble. I was suspended a few times in middle school. Yeah. And then when I get to high school, I guess school sort of became like an escape from the reality of what I was dealing with in my home life. I understand that. And so I focused on high school really, really hard and had excellent grades. And then that's when I got into Mount Holyoke. And at Mount Holyoke, I found the schoolwork to be very easy, except for my Middle Eastern Studies classes, which is why I switched my major, because I really liked the professor that was in charge of them. But then I just pretty much did activism because it was a joke.
Oh.
The only things I was really challenged in was languages. So I took 3 language classes. I took Hebrew, Arabic, and Spanish.
Wow. I love Arabic and Hebrew.
I love Arabic. Yeah, they're really fun languages.
When I was in Sri Lanka, it was a surf break and there were all these Israelis. And
they travel all over the place.
Oh my gosh.
They get out of the army. They're like, let's go to India for 6 months.
And they all end up in Sri Lanka because Sri Lanka is like the break from India. I did it backwards, of course. And they were teaching me Hebrew and we would play like ping pong for hours.
Was it ping pong or something called makot?
No, it was ping pong.
Okay.
It was just like a straight
They
up.
have an Israeli style ping pong, but it's like you don't hit it on a table. You're at the beach and you're hitting it back and forth.
Yeah, no, this place where they all stayed had a ping pong table and we would play for hours and they were the most competitive people I've ever met.
I can already like predict what words they taught you too. They're probably like sababa, which is like chill.
What was the one that I loved? I would totally butcher it because it's been for like 6 years now. I feel like it was like Atalepo Harbe, you come here often or something.
Yeah. That's about right.
Yeah, Atalepo Harbe.
Harbe means a lot.
Yeah, you come here a lot. I love that one. It was fun. And again, I always think, to kind of circle back to Americans and just the stuff going on in campuses, I feel like a big problem with Americans on both the left and the right and even the center, but is that they don't get out of America enough. I don't mean just like go to your semester abroad in Italy, like go see somewhere where there's abject poverty, like Mumbai or somewhere, anywhere. Really.
Well, even studying abroad, not enough Americans are even studying abroad. For me, I studied abroad in Israel. That was the first country I've ever been to besides the US. But I think when Americans do go abroad, they're like, "Oh, I went on a cruise in the Caribbean."
Yeah, that's not abroad.
I went to Cabo 2 weeks ago.
I love Cabo.
It's nice, but it's way too touristy. I like the backpacking. I went with my grandfather, so we're just sitting in the resort all day. But I'm used to like backpacking, going out places. That's what I like to do. But I do think people need to travel more. But I also think learning languages is important. So many Americans are like, well, I speak English. Everyone in the world speaks English, which is like basically true. I've never had an issue with no one speaking English that often. It's happened a few times in small areas or like with cab drivers. But learning another language really opens your eyes to things and it really helps you think in a different way, especially if the language does not use your writing system. Yeah. Like learning Hebrew and Arabic, I really enjoy. I write in Arabic all the time. I'll take notes in Arabic while I'm writing it in English, but with Arabic script when I'm bored in class.
That's awesome.
It's fun.
I was married to a Belarusian, and so I started learning Russian because I'm obsessed, and one of my favorite books is Crime and Punishment, and my dream is to be able to read it in Russian.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like a lifelong goal, and it will probably take a lifetime, but just learning that alphabet was amazing. I was just
fun.
It's so cool. It is. It's even just learning how to write them, and languages, it's so good. It's like learning an instrument. It's just good for creating those new pathways in your brain.
Yeah, and if you don't use it, you'll lose it.
Oh,
I'm losing my Arabic right now. I haven't spoken Arabic in months.
It's like anything too, even like shooting. I started learning how to shoot, and then I haven't in a little bit, and now I feel like I'm already losing it.
That happened to me a couple months ago when I went out shooting, and I was shooting a handgun, and I've never been amazing with a handgun.
Yeah.
But I was not hitting the target at all, and it was because I was like jumping before.
The flinch.
I was flinching before I said it. And so what my friend did was he took all the bullets out.
That's the way to
and wouldn't
fix
tell
it.
me if it was in or not, and he would hand it to me until I just wasn't scared anymore.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And the chickling. I was like doing the chickling again. I'm like, I got rid of this.
Yeah. You have to shoot a lot to get used to it.
It's such a skill. All of those skills. I love it. I do think that there's so much that I wish we focus. I feel like the education system needs just such a massive overhaul, and it feels so old.
Do you mean like universities or
even just like public schools? They just feel like daycares for bigger.
That's all it is, really. They're not really teaching kids things. Like I used to be, like I said, I worked in a daycare, and I also did an after school program. And these kids weren't learning anything. I had to sit down and teach them everything. And the way that they are teaching things is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, they're using some weird...
What's that crazy math they're doing?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. That's what I'm getting at. This weird math that makes no sense. Instead of doing 4 plus 2, you do 4 plus 5 minus 1.
Yeah, no.
Divided by 7 times 3. That's the answer. I'm like, no. Stop making things overcomplicated.
It's so weird. My nephews were just visiting, and they are all like 10 to 18 in range, and they were doing their crazy math, telling me about their crazy math.
I don't know why they have this.
No, it's so weird.
I taught the kids how to do the 9 multiplying using your fingers, and their teachers didn't teach them that.
Yeah,
that got me through elementary school having that trick with my 9s.
So weird.
They never learned it.
I wonder why they like just switched up the whole math system.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, I was learning with like songs and stuff. You know the song like mode means the most, median's the middle, add them up, and then divide the sum is whatever. So that's how I learned when I was a kid. Now these kids are like writing definitions to remember things.
It's weird.
It's not how kids learn.
So when you started the Lone Conservative, what inspired that?
So I think it was after all the media started coming that summer where I was doing my internship. I really wanted to write some op-eds, but I didn't have any connection in the media, and it's not easy to get into the media. They're just like, oh, you're just some crazy girl who took a video? Yeah, no.
I'm like, you say that, but our stories are both like, whoops, we accidentally ended up in the media.
Yeah, well, it's because you knew somebody, but if you don't know anybody, it doesn't really get there. And so Campus Reform's only reporting, so I was like, okay, I'll make the editorial version of Campus Reform.
Okay.
And so now I have more than we're getting close to 400 contributors
that
have written for me. We have about, I'd say, 150 to 200 people that are active.
Who edits all of this?
So we have an editor-in-chief, and then we have a team of editors.
Oh,
so
wow.
basically, they submit their piece. We have guidelines for like how long it needs to be, and so then one of our volunteer editors will take a pass at it, and then another one will take a pass at it, and then our editor-in-chief takes a pass and publishes it.
Wow.
Also, everyone's volunteer.
Right.
I don't even get paid.
Right.
This is a complete volunteer organization. I have so many students who want leadership roles, running social media and all of this stuff, because it really does help them get something on their resume.
Right.
I've had so many students go on to, write for the National Review, USA Today, the Examiner. Some of them just got hired for the Daily Caller. So
because there really isn't a pathway.
No, they don't know how to do it.
Yeah. And it is so primarily, as I've been working on this piece about self-censorship, some of the most interesting emails I've received are from students on campuses telling me about their experience of how they have to censor in their schools. And, Jordan Peterson would be like, don't censor. If you lie enough, you become the lie. Yeah. And I think there's a certain amount of pleasing your teacher, obviously, with any, people who push back are like, well, that's just college. Everybody just writes what their teacher wants to hear.
Yeah.
But not if it's something you don't believe.
Well, I think Ben Shapiro, he says that you should take your test and write like Bernie Sanders and argue like Ted Cruz.
Interesting.
That's a good strategy, but I never did that.
Oh, okay.
I actually really liked my professors.
Yeah.
Even when I took American politics classes, I still liked them, even though they're one guy was trying to teach about libertarianism, and he was like, libertarians want no state at all. And I was like, that's not what this is. And so he let me get up and teach the class what libertarianism was and what conservatism was and what modern conservatism was. But then when I went into Middle Eastern studies, it wasn't as bad because we're not focusing on Trump the whole time.
Right.
Even though Trump trickles his way into every single class.
Everything.
Including my Arabic class. We had to talk about Trump for one class. That was
weird.
Hilarious. But so I always wrote conservatively after my first year.
Okay.
My first semester, I took a gender studies class.
Oh. Is it mandatory?
No. But I wanted to
Did you have to take a diversity class?
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of my classes would have fulfilled that. But I just wanted to take gender studies to see if it was as crazy as people said. And I thought, honestly, I went into this so blind. Like, I thought we were really going to be talking about the struggles of women and the history of the women's rights movement and like all of this stuff. No. That's not what we talked about at all. We pretty much talked about cats a lot. That was a big theme. My professor told me that she buried like her cat on the grave of the founder of my college, which is in the middle of the school. She like dug it up and tried putting the cat in there and got arrested. So that was my professor.
Okay, crazy.
We talked a lot about like transgender issues.
Yep.
There's actually a crazy part with that where someone in my class said, transgender people are very interesting. And this other person said, how dare you say that? You're talking about them like they're a circus animal. And the girl who made the original comment, or the person who made the original comment, said, I'm trans. And then the other one is like, I'm trans too. And they got up and started screaming at each other during class. And I'm sitting there doodling on my notebook. Like, you should see that notebook, by the way. I still have it. It has doodles all over. That's what I did the whole class. Like, I got an A. I wrote what they wanted me to write, but...
Will you send me some screenshots of your doodles?
I should.
That I can put them on my Patreon for my patrons. As
really
an extra.
Good. I draw like tribal art, like, you know, the tattoos.
Yeah,
That's what I do with my doodles.
It's so funny. I'd like to take a quick break so we can talk about our sponsor. We all want to do the right thing to keep our bodies healthy in the long run, but even if we try really hard and eat kale salads and drink green smoothies, we're still most likely not getting all of the essential nutrients we need on a daily basis. Enter Ritual, the obsessively researched vitamin for women. Ritual's essentials have the nutrients most of us don't get enough of from food, all in their clean, absorbable forms, no shady additives or ingredients that can do more harm to your body than good. 2 easy-to-take capsules provide 9 nutrients you need to support a strong foundation for your health. I've been taking Ritual for about 3 months now, and I definitely feel a difference in my energy. It feels more consistent. I also it's hard, I think, to notice at first. I'm pretty healthy overall. And at first to notice the change, but I think the biggest observable difference is people keep commenting on my skin and hair looking great and shiny. My hair, they're like, your hair is so shiny. And I really think it's the vitamins. I feel much more energetic. I feel like I wake up and I'm not so groggy in the mornings. I think it's just the purity of the contents of this vitamin. I love knowing that I'm getting everything my body needs or might be lacking from these vitamins. For obsessive label readers, all of Ritual's vegan-friendly, sugar-free, non-GMO, gluten-free, and allergen-free ingredients and their sources are out there for the whole world to see. A subscription is easy to start and it's easy to snooze. It's only $1 a day to have all the essential nutrients your body needs, delivered every month, no strings attached. Better health doesn't happen overnight, and right now Ritual is offering my listeners 10% off during your first 3 months. Fill in the gaps in your diet with Essential for Women, a small step that helps support a healthy foundation for your body. Visit ritual.com/walkin to start your Ritual today. That's 10% off during your first 3 months at ritual.com/walkin. And so how did you become conservative?
Yeah, so I think my AP government class, I realized I was conservative the year before, but that's because my grandfather, who's a good guy, he is like the best person in my family. He's the one I went to Cabo with. He used to take me on these afternoon trips where I met him, by the way, when I was 15. I didn't meet him until my freshman year of high school. But he would take me to his house. I would help him water all of his plants because he had like a jungle, I'd swear. And then we go out to dinner, and he sometimes would like buy like my winter clothes because my mom couldn't afford it. And so I'd hang out with my grandfather, and he would put on Rush Limbaugh. My grandfather's like the typical Trump boomer. Like, he's the one sending you emails saying if you don't send this to 15 friends, you're going to die. Like that's my grandfather.
Yep.
And so he kind of got me into conservatism. And when I worked for Carly, I remember him calling me up all mad saying, "You're working for the wrong candidate. She's not going to win. Trump is the guy."
Wow.
And I was like, no, he's not the guy.
And he was.
So yeah, mostly my grandfather, and then being in AP government. And even so, going into college, I wasn't pro-life. I was very lenient on most issues. I was just fiscally conservative. I really aligned with Charlie Baker, the governor of Massachusetts. Right. And then I started moving more into it as I started learning more.
Yeah. So what are you noticing? Like, what trends are you noticing among young people who are conservatives, young conservatives?
Well, so a couple of years ago, I'd say I'm not optimistic, but I downloaded TikTok. Have you heard of TikTok?
Yes. Wait, why would you say you're not optimistic?
So a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have been, because I'm surrounded in college by all of these millennials who are very non-conservative, very liberal. They don't really are trying to learn what conservatism is. They're just labeling it as hateful or whatever. But now that I downloaded TikTok, there are so many young conservatives on TikTok, and they're not millennials, they're Gen Z. They're all like 15-year-olds to 19-year-olds. All these conservative videos, these memes. It's 10 million videos about Ben.
No, oh, I know. Ben, million. There's going to be, I mean, we were joking about this the other day because I was talking about how the 12-year-olds are obsessed with Ben Shapiro, and someone was like, we don't need millions of Ben Shapiros. And I'm like, yeah, one really is enough, you know? But so what I learned from my nephews, which was really interesting, is that, and I don't think what these liberal teachers realize is they like radicalized an entire generation of young conservatives and Gen Z because they all went into their classes crying about Trump. They're
really starting to move more conservative.
Yeah.
Like my little brother, he just turned 18. He's a video game kid. He's getting ready to join the army when he graduates this year in like a month or so. Wow, I'm getting old. But so
tell me about it, sister.
So he knew I was moving to LA, but I guess he didn't know where I was working. I guess he didn't know what the Daily Wire was, but he knew who Ben was. And he sees a picture of me on Ben's Twitter, and he's like, "Wait, Cassie, where do you work?" I was like, "I work for Ben." He goes, "You didn't tell me this?" I'm like, "I didn't even know you knew who Ben was." He goes, "I've seen every single one of his YouTube videos."
That's amazing.
So my little brother is watching Ben with no conservative influence.
No.
He didn't have the grandfather talking to him.
It's YouTube. I mean, that's what's funny is the kids are what, again, they don't understand that's happening is they're hearing all of this like essentially propaganda in their schools. And they'd go home and tell my sister, for example, said during the election, they would come home and tell her some of the stuff the teachers were saying. And she's very much like me, just it tries to stay not too extreme in any way.
Yeah.
She's probably a little more center right. I'm a little more center left, although probably not even that anymore. And she was like, I got to the point where leading up to the election, she was like, I was telling my kids, your teachers are insane. This is not the only perspective. You cannot just listen to them and take it in, but this is not okay. You know, they're coming home with fully formed opinions about Trump that didn't come from them.
They came from being in the opposition. That's one thing I think is what's driving this is that young people like to be different.
Right.
They like to be edgy. They like to be, they like to piss people off sometimes. And so they see all
these. This is a counterculture.
Yeah. They want to be part of the counterculture. And so they think the best way to do this is to be this edgy
conservative.
Yes.
But that's what's so funny.
Like I don't really subscribe to Milo anymore, but Milo said conservatism's like the new punk rock. And you can really see this with Gen Z.
Totally. I said this on Twitter. I said Kurt Cobain would be a conservative, like he would be a Republican. And everyone was so mad, but it was really pointing out to that it is the counterculture. The kids, my friend in town, she has an 18-year-old son, and they all go to Santa Monica, him and all of his group of guy friends. And they're a very diverse group of kids. They're from, like, one of them's black, one's Asian. It's like this total little gang that they have, and they are all massive. She's like, all I have to listen to is Ben Shapiro.
It's crazy.
He's like captured Gen Z somehow. And I said, where did they find out about it? She's like, I don't know. The YouTube.
YouTube is what, there's so many right-wingers on YouTube. There's one kid who writes for me, and we have some high schoolers, and he's 16, and he runs the Ben Shapiro 2024 Twitter account. And he has like 20,000 followers. And he literally thinks he's Ben Shapiro. Like, he is an Orthodox Jew. He he just loves Ben and idolizes him. And like, I think he had a Ben Shapiro birthday cake 2 years in a row. And
my
can you imagine that? Could you imagine back in the day having a birthday cake of a political commentator?
No, because politics have become entertainment, which is the other interesting thing that's happened in the United States, is that not only is it's just interesting to watch the shift. And that was kind of my question, is as the left has moved farther left, because I really haven't moved too much, maybe a little bit, but mostly I believe the same things, and the left is going batshit
They're
crazy.
leaving you. You're not leaving them.
Yeah. And then what I've noticed with the younger modern conservatives, and it's particularly your generation, is that they're a lot more tolerant to like gay marriage. There are just certain things that are already more acceptable. And then because there are all these refugees fleeing the left, we're
taking them.
Right has had to become a little bit more tolerant in some respects, I guess. It's just interesting to watch how it's changing the conservative party as well.
I'm not sure if it's tolerance. I think it's more we just don't give a crap.
Yeah.
You can go marry whoever you want as long as you're not going to.
But it was not like that for me growing up.
In the 90s, I probably would have been a liberal, to be honest. There's a few issues that the conservatives are not going to budge on, mainly abortion.
Yeah.
Conservatives are not going to budge on it. They're only going to push it more to the right, which is happening.
Yeah.
My generation's more pro-life than any other generation.
Yeah.
So we're not going to give up that. But gay marriage and such, like, that's such a losing battle. Who cares? Who cares? If you're going to advocate for fiscal responsibility and other conservative policies, I don't care.
Yeah. So I guess that's what I mean in terms of like tolerance, because my generation growing up, that was not tolerated.
Yeah.
It was something that it was kind of like a deal breaker for people when if you ask them if there was that, you're like, well, no, I believe that, in gay marriage, so obviously I'll never be a conservative, but that does not exist anymore.
Well, even the trans issue, a lot of conservatives my age just don't care.
No one cares.
Like, I don't care what you call yourself. If you try putting me in jail because I call you the wrong pronoun on accident, then we're gonna have a problem. We're gonna have a problem. But am I gonna use am I gonna call Blair White a he? No.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna do that. Like, that's just being a jerk.
Yeah. There's no need to be.
I'm not going to use Z and Zer in those ones, but
no.
I'll use a pronoun you want. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't think anyone cares.
No,
that's why.
Why ruin a friendship that you could potentially have, or why just be obnoxious for no reason?
Yeah, and that's on both sides. I see that behavior where some people tend to like dig their heels in.
Yeah, I will say though, like people on the left, they get really offended if you use the wrong one mistakenly.
Yeah,
but if you don't pass and I use the wrong pronoun, then okay, correct me. Don't freak out about it.
It's a bit of a purity test on the left, and so that's where I push back against it. And I'm always like, boys and girls are different. I say this on every public channel that I can possibly get on. And when I was on Ruben, he was like, "Great, we're demonetized now, Bridget." And I did the same thing on Glenn. He's like, "Thanks a lot, we're demonetized now, Bridget." Like, but that's messed up. Like, it's messed up that gets you demonetized.
Yeah, who sits there at YouTube and watches all the videos? That's what I want to know.
Offensive.
Yeah, right. I haven't even made a YouTube channel. I'm too afraid. Like, I'm gonna put all the work, and then they're just gonna demonetize everything.
Yeah, that's what I have the same feelings because I haven't made one, and everyone. I think you and I both probably would serve. It would serve us well. I definitely was on with Roaming Millennial. Lauren was on. By
the way, I'm really glad we finally know her name.
Yeah. She's not just a roaming millennial.
She's great.
I love her. So she was on the panel with Ben, and she was so good, and it's all those hits she does for YouTube.
Yeah, it gives you good media exposure. I watched my first Fox hit, the one I was talking about earlier, and I just cringed.
I can't watch mine.
I don't know how to control my eyebrows. I'm just sitting there like giving everyone like the eyebrows.
I straight up rolled my eyes and didn't realize I was doing it.
On Ben Show?
Yeah, so everyone like turned it into a GIF. I like literally just sat back and rolled my eyes at the girl from Pink, Project Pink or whatever, Ariel.
It's deserved.
Oh, yeah. Oh. I think I sometimes feel like when I'm on these things that I'm just, it's almost like they were like, Bridget was like, you were in between two robots and you were just like the normal American who was watching television, but they like put you on the show.
I'm surprised Ben invited her on. She's insane.
Yeah.
She was, her group was screaming at some Venezuelan protesters outside the embassy the other day.
What?
She's like, you Venezuelans don't know what you're talking about. And I'm
What?
like, code pink white girl, shut up. Like,
Yeah.
people are literally starving in Venezuela. You don't know what you're talking about.
That was the argument she and I got in because she was speaking on behalf of Kanye. And I was like, oh, you're going to speak on behalf of a black man now? Like, you get to determine what's good for him?
Wait, was that the same episode where she just randomly was like, the Israelis?
Yes. Yes, it was.
And Ben was like, I have no idea what that has to do with what we're talking about.
Ben handles that shit so well. I mean, the guy, and I think that's why these kids love him, is because it's the whole like Ben Shapiro destroys.
Yeah, he annihilates.
And what they're seeing, and what I realized from talking to these kids, is they're seeing him destroy their teacher that is teaching them or came in crying or is constantly bringing everything back to Trump or whatever. And in their mind, they're like, oh, this is how I can disassemble this.
Yeah.
You know, they don't know how to fight it because it's like it's just the ideology. They're kind of, it's like the water that they're swimming in.
Mm-hmm. I think there's 3 Ben Shapiro types fans.
Okay.
There's the first type that likes watching him go in campuses and destroy people and debate people on the news that are left leaning. And so that they do that because that's when Ben's at his best. That's when he's the most entertaining. Mm-hmm. And then there's the second one who watches his breakouts, you know, like the small clips. They maybe follow him on Twitter and they're like, okay, I watch more than just those. And then there's the super fans. These are the people that tweet at everybody at the Daily Wire. These are the people who draw fan art. These are the people who watch every Ben Shapiro show.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. I've had a lot of fan art drawn because of that.
Have you? That's so cool. I mean, it's interesting. Even what happens to me in LA, everywhere I go now, is people have because they follow Ben Shapiro. They'll be like, "Oh, hey, I heard Ben. He mentioned my name once, and this guy reached out to me. He's like a big shot in town, and he was like, "Hey, are you the Bridget that Ben mentioned?" And I was like, "I see you. You shouldn't be letting me know." And then this other girl was scrolling through his feed, and we're in 12-step together. And she was like, "Oh my God, it's so nice to know you're not insane." She texted me. She's like, "I can't believe that's you." And so it's funny that I've been inadvertently outing people who are like on the DL in LA. And it's just funny that there are all these people who are kind of down low, libertarian and conservatives. Yeah, so many.
So they had the Friends of Abe, the big secretive society. And they still have another one, a female one. They've invited me in a few meetings. I haven't gone yet, but I should because there's a lot of conservatives here. We should. About it.
I think that if anything, this conversation too has made me realize that we need to do that here because I think in LA, I know I feel isolated. You probably not as much because of where you work, but being in the space that I'm in, which is neither here nor there, really, I don't feel. It would be nice to just know where I can go to talk to people who are kind of like-minded-ish.
Yeah, there's definitely small groups, so they're hard to reach out, and a lot of people are scared of growing them because of what happened to Friends of Abe. They started like releasing names of people who were part of it.
Oh my gosh.
We're getting their careers ruined off of that. You have to be super careful.
Yeah, that's the thing. It still is that's where the self-censorship comes in where I'm like, this is not good.
Yeah, like I dug my hole. Like I'm not ever gonna
I'm done.
I will never be able to work anywhere that's non-political.
I'm
nowhere.
I'm done. Yeah, me too. I mean, basically I need to like make this Patreon thing work out in this podcast.
I need a Patreon.
Like the only path through is through, you know, I can't, there's no going back. I won't ever be in like a writer's room in LA, which is why I came out here to be a writer and do television. I'm like, yeah, that's not happening anymore.
That's what scared me though, is like I made this decision when I was only 20 years old that I was going to have a career in conservative media.
Yeah.
If we hit another recession, like I'm screwed. Like there's not a lot of conservative media jobs, let me tell you.
That's why you've got to build your own thing.
Yeah.
That's like resistant.
And honestly, I like new media better. Like if I ever got a job offer for Fox, I don't know if I would take it because it's just too corporate. It's too big. I like smaller media.
Yeah. So tell me, before I always ask the same 2 questions of everyone.
Okay.
What's your biggest defect of character that you have to overcome on a daily basis?
Like
anything that you really have to work against, whether it's a bad habit or, I mean, for me, I feel like it changes every day. Like today, mine would probably be pride. I can see how I have to really like humble myself and not be so prideful because it's affecting relationships. But other days it's like procrastination.
Yeah, I definitely have the procrastination on sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's like stability. Like, for instance, I don't like being in the same place for too long. I don't like being at the same job for too long. I don't like dating the same guy for too long. Like this, I don't like having the same friends for too long. I'm constantly moving on to different things because probably of the upbringing, honestly.
Yeah. You know what? I can tell you that it gets better with age. Because I was very much like you at, what are you, 23?
23,
yeah. So I was like, I actually got married at 23 because I was trying to resist exactly this. And then
You're trying to force yourself into it.
Kind of stability. And then it just didn't. I have a wanderlust, and I think we're very similar from even just talking to you, that I love traveling. I get restless if I don't go international at least once a year. I love globetrotting. I am never happier than when I get in my car and I just drive and have no idea where I'm going or when I'm coming back. It's just an open road trip. And I think that I've managed to build, there's this great quote and it says life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. And I had this like epiphany one day where I was like, holy shit, I've never had a comfort zone. I've been living like this quote is my life. I've never been in a comfort zone. And so I really started being like, okay, I just have to build a comfort zone. And started very simple, and now it feels like I can do those like not so stable, but it doesn't feel as restless.
So note to self: get a comfort zone and don't get married this year.
Yeah, don't get married. And what's your greatest asset?
Probably my friendliness. I have a really good talent. I'm going to call this a talent at being around very socially awkward people or just strange people who are out there and not making the situation awkward. This has happened to me a little bit in the past few weeks where I've just like been hanging out with people who just are so different than me and don't really know how to have a good time. They're just kind of like sticks in the mud, and I just break into it and I'm friendly with them and I make people feel comfortable even if I'm not necessarily comfortable in the situation.
Yeah, you're very open and warm.
I like being friendly to people. I think
that will go a long way in media too.
Yeah, you have to have that in media.
Definitely.
I used to be very nervous and shy, and now I don't get scared to go on stages or speak in front of a camera. Even though
you've been doing my friend's show.
Which one?
The We the People.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I love We the People. It's one of my favorite shows. Yeah. So I don't get nervous to do those things anymore, but I did get nervous like 2 months ago when I was at CPAC, and I get an email from CPAC inviting me to the Reagan dinner, telling me they had extra tickets, and I'm like, oh sure, I'll go. Free food, whatever. And so I go, and they seat me at a table that's dead center stage.
Oh god.
And like, this is an expensive table. There are some really famous people around me, like Judge Janine, and
wow.
I'm like, what is going on? Why are they giving me this expensive table? Like, my seat's probably like a couple grand.
Right.
And then I hear them, okay, time to give the Reagan Award. And I'm like, oh, who's getting the Reagan Award? And then some guy comes up behind me and grabs my arm and lifts me up, and I'm like, what is going on? And they lead me onto the stage. Was not expecting this. My feet are hurting from my heels. And I get on the stage and I start like freaking out and crying. So I'm like, what is going on? And I don't get nervous ever. Yeah. So
that's a huge award.
It was really nice.
That's amazing.
I did not see it coming.
What is it for?
It's for conservative activism.
Okay.
They didn't even give one last year because they didn't know who to give it to.
Wow.
So you have to be like a self-made conservative activist.
Wow.
So like Mark Levin's got it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a scary scenario. I didn't realize that was going to happen. I would have said something better because they shoved a microphone in my hand.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, say thank you. And so all I said was, thank you. I didn't see this coming.
Yeah, you're so
I would have had like something more prepared if they would have given me at least a little bit of a heads up.
Well, you are so, I don't know, just lovely. You're just so vivacious. And I feel like you have so much to offer and you're so motivated. You know, it's like I'm so impressed with like Liz Wolfe was on, and I was like I was a disaster at 23, you know? I'm just so impressed when I meet.
You were talking about this the other day about late bloomers, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people my age might burn out a little quickly. That's probably my biggest fear is burning out.
Interesting.
So I'm not opposed to late bloomers at all because you guys have more wisdom. And so one thing I try to do is I have so many mentors in my life that are double my age.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly like, before I make any decision, I call at least like 4 people.
That's smart.
And also
really
they're all
smart.
mostly men, by the way. Most of my mentors in my life are men. So I'm not going to put down the patriarchy.
No.
I hate when people do that. So
No, it's very smart to have people to run things by. I think especially because it's such a minefield coming up and in media and doing what you're doing, that it's nice to have people to help you kind of avoid some of the pitfalls they may have already fallen in.
There are so many bad decisions I avoided by talking to these people.
Oh, God.
There are some bad things I've almost done.
Yeah, I'm sure. And that's the hard thing, too, is someone like you probably gets a ton of opportunities, and it's when to say yes and when to say no.
You have to be careful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. I know you have to go be beautiful and do photos.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Come back.
Maybe I'll have you on my podcast that I'm starting soon.
Yeah. What's your podcast? Plug it right now.
It's going to be called The Cassie Dillon Show.
I love it.
So it's very simple. It's mainly going to be me interviewing people who are not necessarily pundits.
Okay.
So I'm going to have some activists from Venezuela and Brazil.
Cool.
I'm going to interview the guy I was talking about earlier that went to Kurdistan with me, who volunteered to fight against ISIS. So different people like that.
That's awesome. And where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Kassy Dillon. That's Cassie with a K and a Y.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
I'd like to thank our sponsor, Ritual. Ritual is the obsessively researched vitamin for women. Better health doesn't happen overnight, and right now, Ritual is offering my listeners 10% off during your first 3 months. Fill in the gaps of your diet with Essential for Women, a small step that helps support a healthy foundation for your body. Visit ritual.com/walkin to start your ritual today. That's 10% off during your first 3 months at ritual.com/walkin. Tune in next week for another riveting episode that will change your life, help you get out of your own way, and solve all the world's problems. I want to thank our composer, Jared Elias, my co-producer and cousin, Maggie, and all of you out there listening. This has been Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you're welcome. It's the dumbest line.